Today we are going to be creating either a landscape or a cityscape. So I'm going to show you both options and you can choose whichever one you like better. The idea is genuinely the same. We're going to have it look like we have a cityscape or some mountains in the background. Then they're going to be reflecting in water. So it's going to look like we have a beautiful lake picture or a river or something. So the first thing that we're going to do to find where our horizon line is going to be, which is going to be in the center of our paper from top to bottom, is we're going to fold our paper in half. So I'm going to turn my paper so that it is the tall way or portrait, and I'm going to fold it in half so I end up with a tall, skinny rectangle. So I like lining up my edges over here, pull out and press down, then go out to the side, out to the side. So what I end up with is a tall, skinny rectangle, or a wide, skinny rectangle. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up, and you should be able to see a nice line going across your paper. It's going to be a little bit harder to see on the video, but you will see it better in just a minute. So what I am going to do now, if you want to draw it out in pencil first, you absolutely can. If you want to go straight to the oil pastel, you are welcome to do that, but understand you cannot erase your oil pastel. So I'm going to do the mountain one first. So I'm going to draw some mountains. My fold is right here. I'm going to start a little bit up from my fold. Now mountains are not just a zigzag line. They are kind of wiggly. They are wide. They are not actually super pointy in real life. And all I am doing is the silhouette, so the outline. I'm not worried about any details in front or anything like that. I'm just doing the silhouette or the outline because it's just going to be all colored in later. So you will see that I have a few wide mountains coming up. My fold is right down here, so I'm going to trace that as well just so that you can see it. You are going to want to trace yours because the next step that we are going to do is we are going to color these in. Okay, if you feel like you need to, you can put a piece of paper underneath this. That will help if you get to keep your oil pastel off of your table or whatever surface you are working on. I personally just kind of go along the edge a little bit to block that off, and go along the edge a little bit so that this way when I'm coloring, I'm going to do it neatly and carefully. So at this point, I just have my mountains. I've traced around them, and I'm now going to color them in with my black oil pastel, pressing firmly. You want them nice and dark and black. All right, at this point I have colored in my mountains. You'll notice that I did not brush my hand across this. I'm not touching my paper right now. There's these little crumbles of oil pastel on it. I don't want to rub them off because otherwise they are going to make smudges on my paper. What I tend to do is I pick up my paper and I just give it a little shake off to the side. If you have a ton of them, please shake it over the trash. It's just going to make it a little bit easier to pick up. So this is what we're going to do if you want yours to look like mountains. Now I'm going to switch papers and show you what it might look like if you decide to draw a city instead. So again, for my city, I'm going to do the same step that I did for my mountains. So I fold my paper in half, and then I open it back up, and you will see on yours, you will have your fold right about here. And just like with the mountains, if you want to draw this out in pencil first, you are welcome to. If you just want to start going in with the oil pastel, you are welcome to as well. So I am going to think more of a big city, and I am going to kind of make rectangular shapes to show the different buildings that are next to each other. So for this part, I am using a lot more straight lines. You do not need a ruler. It is fine if they are not absolutely perfect, because we are doing this by hand, and that's okay. So maybe some buildings are taller than others and smaller than others. One thing you want to be aware of is don't make it so complicated that it's going to be really hard for you to color in after. So now I have a decent city skyline. And again, it's a silhouette, so I'm not adding windows or doors. I'm just drawing the outline, because now, just like with our mountains, we are going to color this in with our oil pastel, nice and solid and black. Alrighty, so now I have my city all colored in. I'm going to do a little shake off of that to get these extra little pieces off. Now we get to do what I consider the fun part. So if I have my city over there and my mountains over here, and it's okay if you can't see the whole thing. What we are going to do next is use a popsicle stick, and we're going to make this symmetrical. So in math class, you talk about symmetry. We also talk about symmetry in art class. So symmetry can be, it's not always, when it is exactly the same on one side of the line as it is the other. So if we are calling this our horizon line, so that's kind of where the sky meets the ground. So our city is above the horizon line because it goes up into the sky. If we're saying it's reflecting on the water, we want it to look just like this on this half of our paper. Same thing with the mountains. We would want the mountains to reflect and be the exact same lower down on our paper. To get our artwork to be symmetrical, what we are going to use is a popsicle stick, and we're going to use the fact that the oil pastel is really smudgy. We're going to use that to our advantage. We are going to fold this back in half so that the art is on the inside. So when I fold this, I need my artwork to be on the inside. So if I open it up like a card, the art is in it. Then I'm going to use my popsicle stick, and using this whole long flat side does not work as well as if you use the rounded edge and you hold it just like a pencil. And this way the rounded edge is kind of like your pencil point, and that's going to push the oil pastel onto the other side of your paper. So you do need to press a little bit firmly. Do not press so hard that you're hurting your hand, and just do a little bit at a time. Then what you can do is you can open it up and check. And if you look, you're going to see a lighter version of your shapes down below. So what's happening is the pressure that we're putting on the oil pastel is pushing it into the paper on the other side. If yours is a little bit streaky like this, that's fine, but you can also go over it a little bit more just so that it's filled in a bit more. You do want it lighter than the top part. That's perfect, because that way it's going to look more like a reflection in the water. So I'm going to do the rubbing part to both my cityscape and my landscape, and I'll check back in a couple minutes. This does take a couple minutes to do. At this point, I think I have done most of my rubbing, but what I want to point out is that here, I didn't quite go up far enough. So I do want to check my work because I noticed that up here I have this tall building. It did not transfer down here, so I just need to do a little bit more. And it doesn't matter which side you've done the rubbing, the actual rubbing on, it's still going to work. If you rub on this side compared to that side, it is still going to work. So at this point, you are going to see that I have both my cityscape and my landscape over, and they are now symmetrical. So if I turn it sideways, what I want you to notice is that this line comes down. If we look at our city, this line comes down, out, down. I gotta rub that a little bit more. My goodness. That's how I'm checking my work. There we go. So I can literally come down my artwork and have it be the same on both sides of the horizon line, which would also be called the line of symmetry if we were just talking about the symmetrical shape that we've created. So the darker part, the darker silhouette, goes on the top. So up here is our sky, then we have our city or our mountains. Down here is going to be the reflection of that in the water. Okay, so this is reflection symmetry. It reflects over that horizon line or over the line of symmetry. Next, we're going to do some painting, and we are just going to go in rainbow order. So we are going to start at the top with red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet at the bottom. Okay, so I am going to do it on one, and then I will do it on the other one. You do have a choice. If you are more comfortable using a smaller brush, it will take you a longer amount of time. You are welcome to use a smaller brush. However, you can also use a slightly larger brush to fill in the space a bit more quickly, but you are still going to have to be careful and do this neatly. If you are a friend who wants to put a piece of paper underneath your painting just so you don't get paint in your spot, that's fine. However, you can also clean it up, especially if you're in my class. We just wipe down the tables when we're done. But if you are creating at home, you definitely want a piece of paper underneath this as like a messy mat or a placemat. The paints that we use are tempera cakes. So we need water, and then I have the tempera cakes right here. These are fantastic. They're similar to watercolors, but the pigment shows up a bit more. You will notice that on the blue, you can see the bottom of the tray. That's totally fine because this part right here is the color as well, so you just swirl on the sides. When you are using your paintbrush, you want to be careful with it. We do not want to destroy our paintbrushes. So what I am going to do is I sweep across the bottom of my water gently, just to get my paintbrush wet. Then, just so that you can see it better, I'm going to move this down. I kind of swirl around and around and around, just with kind of the tippy toe of my paintbrush. And I'm using a big one so that I fill the space a little bit more. And I go over it more than once, so I'm really getting that paintbrush saturated with color. So if you look, you can see that I have quite a bit of the red on there. Then I am simply going to make a stripe going across my paper. One of the things that we want to do is we're going to practice blending our colors. I'm going right off of the paper because I'm going to wipe my table after. If you are more comfortable, then grab a messy mat, go right off the edge a little bit so that we get that all nice and solid painted. Next, I'm going to use the color orange. So again, we're going in rainbow order. So I am sweeping my water so I get all of the red out as much as possible. I don't want to tap off my paintbrush because I need that water to make the orange work. So now I'm going to grab some orange. And again, just the tip. I don't need to press hard. My paintbrush should be having a good hair day. So if we look at it, having a good hair day, it's not a hot mess. And then I'm going to paint orange right below the red and almost into the red a little bit. I want them to blend together. And I'm going to go right over my mountains. Or if you're doing your city, you're going to go right over your city. But I bring that orange up into the red and then pull down a little bit just so that I'm filling the space. I sweep off the orange. Next is going to be my yellow. And again, I swirl, pick some up. If your yellow is dirty, what you can do is you can swirl around it and then rinse off your paintbrush, swirl around it again, and it will become cleaner, just in case those colors have mixed a bit. And I'm going to grab that yellow. And the yellow, you might not see a lot of it. It depends on how far down your other colors come, and that's okay. You do want to make sure that you're rinsing in between those colors. And again, I'm going right over the oil pastel. If a little bit shows up still on the oil pastel, that's fine. Don't worry about it. And I'm going to bring this all the way up so I get that really nice blend of red to orange, and then there's yellow down in here. After that, and I'm tight on space on my desk, but you'll have more space at your table, I am going to do green next. You're only going to use a little bit of green. So again, get your paintbrush wet, swirl around gently, be kind to your paintbrush. Do some green, and it will stick to the paper where those kind of swirly spots are, where we didn't press quite so hard on there, and that's perfect. That is absolutely fine. After my green, I grab some blue. And again, I'm going up on the sides of that blue because it was a little bit running out. And I'm making that blue go into the green a little bit. So you may not even fully notice the green, and that is fine. And then at the very bottom of my paper, I should have our violet. Now this violet ends up looking a bit more of a magenta, but that's okay, it's what we have. And again, if you are doing this at home and you have watercolors, this would also work with watercolors. We have tempera cakes at our school, so we tend to use those. And I'm going to bring that right down to the edge, and then to make it blend, I can go over that. I'm not pressing hard, and I'm not going all the way up, because I do want to see some of the plain blue in there as well. When I am done, it should, mine has spots from where I put it on the paint tray, so I'm going to try to get rid of those. But it should look pretty decent when you are done. You should have a nice fading sunset into the distance, and there is your mountain landscape. I am going to do the cityscape next with a smaller brush, just so that you see that it does take a little bit longer, but I'm going to speed up the video while I'm doing it. But you'll see that the smaller brush covers less space. So I'm going to put this one off to the side and work on my cityscape next. Okay, so I'm using a much smaller brush for my cityscape. And again, have to get it wet. Start with red at the top. Make sure these tend to have more of a bad hair day if you're not gentle with them. So be careful. They should be having a good hair day. That tells you that you are using them the right way. But you end up having to refill on your colors a lot more often with the smaller brush, so it will take you longer. Okay, so at this point, you are going to see that I have my landscape and my cityscape all finished. This is a little bit wet, so it looks white in here. That's just a glare from the lights. It is painted. But you'll notice that I didn't have to pick up as much paint. I didn't have to redip my paintbrush as much with the larger paintbrush compared to the smaller one. I had to do a lot more. You're also going to notice that I can see the color down in the reflection part more, but that's totally appropriate because when you are looking at the reflection of something, like if you were sitting on a porch overlooking a lake, you would see a reflection, but it's going to be more faint than the silhouette that's above our horizon line. So I hope you enjoyed following along and that yours came out amazing, and I will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.